is we're going to add a UI. So we're going to add a simple score and maybe a button or two just to show how buttons work. So you can access all of your UI elements in the hierarchy. You can right click and go down to UI. And there's two kinds. There's for a lot of these components, you'll see two kinds. You see a normal one and then a Dash Text Mesh Pro one. For this tutorial, I'll do the regular text, but I highly recommend that you use the Text Mesh Pro one. Text Mesh Pro has been purchased by Unity, so it's theirs. They own it, but they haven't like completely standardized it. Like it's still a package that you have to, like an optional package that you have to include. But if you hit this, then you'll just do it. And so all the stuff that I'll cover will transfer perfectly over to the Text Mesh Pro version, and I recommend using the Text Mesh Pro version. I just haven't imported it, and I don't want to waste your time looking at a loading bar. So what I did was I clicked on text to create a new text, and it created 3 objects. It created an event system. This is the object that handles getting like input from the mouse and like a position, like all. It's the events for interacting with the UI. So if you check out down here in the bottom right, this is like the debugger. And while I move around in the game scene, you can kind of see it shows the position, the delta, which is like how much it's moved, and also if it's eligible for click or not. So if you ever need to like debug your UI system, you can just click on the event system and it'll give you a ton of information that you can use. So this guy you don't have to touch; it just has to exist. So I stick it up at the very top because it's a scene essential. The next up is a canvas. So every UI element must be a child of a canvas. You can't have just UI elements existing. If you try to do that, well, Unity will try to put it on the canvas, but you just won't see it. It must be canvas is the thing that draws UI elements. So here's our text. So if you notice, it's a little fuzzy. This fuzziness is not a thing if you use Text Mesh Pro. It uses something called Sign Depth Field, or SDF. So it's amazing. So use don't use the native text elements, but everything's like virtually exactly the same. So this will carry over. So here we've got the canvas, and canvas is made of 3 things. So you've got the space. So you got the canvas, the scaler, and the graphics raycaster. The raycaster is what handles your UI being interactable. So if you want to like click on a button or something, then you must have a graphic raycaster. And if you don't want this particular element to be interactable, then you can disable it or you can just remove it altogether. The scaler is an important bit. UIs are kind of complicated. I recommend doing scale with screen size, and then over here in my game view. So yeah, this is my game view. I chose a 16:9 resolution. If you don't have this, you can hit the plus button down here, and you just manually add it. You give it a name. You give it yeah. So I'll just do 16:9. So what you set this depends on what you're building. 16:10, 16:9 is a common aspect ratio for computers, for desktops. A common one I use is this 1900 by 1200. This is a good one for WebGL. But for this one, if you're building to your phone or to a desktop, then 16:9 is a good choice. So then my point is that when you have this reference resolution, just make sure that these are some version of a 16:9. So as a cheat, I think one of these is this one. 1920 by 1080 is 16:9. So 1920, 1080. Nice. And then I set this to 0.5. So if you can, like copy these or memorize them or take a screenshot. This you don't have to do this in order to get everything to work, but I find that I do a lot less troubleshooting and like pixel pinching when I have this set up. And then we also have this, the render mode. So this is an important overlay and camera are virtually identical, especially if you only have one camera in the scene. Overlay is like how you would picture like a classic UI element where everything like in Mario, your lives like are over everything. It's drawn on top. It's like drawn on the camera space. It's not drawn in the world. If you want something diegetic or like some UI like that exists in the world, then you want world space, and that's for like if you have an enemy that runs around the level and he has a health bar above his head, or if you've got words above your character, like your character's name above their head, like in an MMO, that's what a world space canvas. But I'll do overlay in this case. So UI is a little funky. My scene is all the way down here, and it's teeny tiny compared to the canvas, and that's kind of normal. I don't know exactly why it's drawn to the size, probably for clarity, or yeah, but that's what it is. So it helps to. It's partially the reason why I have a game view down here and a scene view up here, so I can see them side by side. So let's change this text to say score, and we're going to change the color to be white, so it'll show up on this background, and we're going to make it big. I don't like to, with UI, I like to keep, with text at least, I like keep the size or the scale alone, and I manipulate it all through its font size. Oh, but if it gets too big, it disappears. So we can do -1. That's interesting. I don't use I use TextMesh Pro a lot. That doesn't happen. So I will increase the scale after all. Yes, that'll work. So an easy way to change your UI elements is you use this rectangle tool, and then you can just grab the corners and you can make it bigger or smaller. You can rescale it. All right, and then these little bits in the center are called anchors, and this determines like where the elements get stuck to. So if it's anchored to the center of the screen. So if I move this, it kind of stays where it's at, and then you can like move these around to the top corner, and then it changes like kind of relatively like where it belongs. So if like you're resizing your elements and they're not looking right, then consider moving the anchors to a more deliberate space. There we go. All right, so we only got a few minutes left, so I'll save the finer points of UI management for another time, but I will show you how to interface with this stuff using code. So let's go ahead and just make this really big. Yeah. So it's a little pixelated, but again, TextMesh Pro is your friend. Use TextMesh Pro. All right, so now what I want to do is add some score. So for the enemy, yes. So I'm just going to make all these enemies. I'm going to give them ability to interface with my score. So on this text element, I will create a new component. So I'll go to add component. I'll call it score system. Score system. There we go. So you'll need to be using engine.ui in order to find these objects. And we're going to have a text element. And then we're going to have a score. No, yeah. Yep, a score. Yes. And so what I'm going to do is every frame, I'm going to update my text. And we're going to do score dot, we're going to say score with a colon plus. This is like I'll change it so it's less confusing. This will be the score amount. So every frame, so the text with a capital T is for the class. So this is referring to this text component with a capital T that is on this object. And then the text field with a lowercase t is referring to this field here. So text with lowercase t. So saying my text.text is equal to score.score amount. It's the same thing as doing score and I don't know, adding a score amount. So whatever we change in that field will change here, which we'll see on the screen. So I'll just leave this here. I'll give it like a placeholder. None. Perfect. Now that exists, I will assign this reference. So I'll drag in the component into text. But we need two parts. So that's what holds and updates the text element, but we need to cause the score to happen. So to do that, we're going to click button. So what I want to do is, for the sake of time, I'm just going to create a button. So I'm going to go to UI. Well, I right-clicked on the canvas UI, and I'm going to click on button. Now, down here, so this is everything we need for a button. It's got an image, and then it's got this button component, and you can get real fancy with like, when you hover, when you click, like the transitions and what it looks like. But we're just going to use the default, very beautiful default UI sprite. It's beautiful. And we're going to make this as big as we can. Cool. That looks better. So in order for this button to react, it's got to be on a canvas. It's got to have the graphic raycaster, and the image must be a raycast target. So if you're ever having to debug your UI elements, check those three things: canvas, raycast target, and graphic raycaster. So now let me get to my score script, and we're going to say add score. This is like so you kill an enemy, you get 5 points. So this is like new, like I don't know, score. I'm fantastic at naming things. Gained score. So we do score amount plus equals gained score to accumulate. And why don't we just go ahead and update that? Actually, it turns out we don't need this. I'll just disable that. So whenever we gain some more score, we're going to add it to keep track of it, and then we're going to change the text element to show that amount. So recompile. And UI buttons are really cool. So check this out. You can come down here where it says on click, you hit the plus button, and what we're going to do is we're going to rig some code through the editor. So I have this function. It's on my score system. It's called add score, and we give it a score. So I created a new event field. So this on click is called a Unity event. This field is called a Unity event. You'll probably see these a lot more now that you recognize them, but these are really cool. So this is my score text, just so I can keep all this straight. So here's the score system. It's on the score text. So if I take the score text, move it down here into the field, and then over here, I'm going to choose a function to call. It's on the score system, and it's called add score. So this is kind of cool. I'm like programming in the editor, right? This isn't it. So here's that add score on the score system, and here is that code in this Unity event. And I will say 7. So every time I click this button on click, it will add 7 to the score. So let's try this out. Click, 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 click. There it is. It doesn't look very good, but I show you, usually it's crisper, but I'm using some other stuff. So there you go. So this is very, very rudimentary and very basic, but it showcases one, here's a button, and you can rig this to a ton of things, right? So like you can create more, and just for fun, I'm just going to click this button and disable all the enemies. So to disable an enemy, I'm going to I'm just going to click the set enable function. So now when I click the button, I will gain score, but it'll also disable the enemies. That is really cool. That is really powerful. That Unity can call your code like through a text editor like that. So the point is that you can rig this button to do all kinds of things. So like if you were to change a level, or if you were to like like open a menu, or whatever happens, this is your bread and butter. Is you set up, you create the function, and you call it through onClick. And then in order to update your text to the player, you use a text element, and you set the text field. All right, that was super quick and dirty. I know that was like 15 minutes of information all at once. Does anyone have any questions, or want me to double back on any of that? Cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for coming. Thanks for showing all your stuff. If you guys want to learn more about UI or anything else, just let me know, because we'll do tutorials like every week or so, or every other week. So if there's something specific that you guys want to know about, let us know and we can incorporate it.